FDA-approved potassium iodide. Available now at shop.real.video.
Well, what really was wild about it was how Orwellian it was. Patreon wrote me, and I started a Patreon account. I came into possession of an old TV studio, and I thought I'd fix it up and do videos from it. Just that simple. Started a Patreon to raise money to do that. And not long after it started, just a couple weeks after it started, Patreon wrote me, said, Mastercard doesn't want to give you this platform, so we're disabling your account. I wrote back and asked them why, on what grounds, nothing. And then Mastercard told Breitbart, it's because you have illegal content on your website. Now, there's nothing illegal on Jihad Watch. It's been operating for 15 years. There's 60,000 news and commentary articles on there, and there's not a shred of illegality. The only way you could conceivably think that there's anything illegal on Jihad Watch is if you are obeying Islamic law. Then there's plenty. Then there's blasphemy against the law, all sorts of things, criticism of Islam, which is what's considered blasphemy, criticism of Muhammad, all those things are illegal according to Islamic law. So is Mastercard now obeying Sharia? It's not just a ridiculous question. They have plenty of holdings in the Middle East, and it may well be that it was because of Sharia that I was banned.
You know, as Christians, as conservatives, as libertarians, as people that follow Western civilization or people that follow the more conservative Jewish systems like the Old Testament, the Talmud, we're self-confident and we're involved and we're successful in life and our families are successful. So we don't want to complain when we get oppressed or we get discriminated against. You know, we don't go out. We don't get on welfare. We don't go out and sit there and get in groups and bitch and gripe until it gets really bad. And ladies and gentlemen, I've talked to folks at the highest levels. I have confirmed the president's looking at executive orders right now because the left and Senator Warner's package that came out a few weeks ago that was secret is planning to try to censor conservatives, including the NRA, by banning us from banking. Now, let me explain something, folks. Banning someone from commerce, everyone overuses Nazi stuff. This is Nazi, that's Nazi. The left does that. They call a ham sandwich Nazi. You know, they call George Washington a Nazi. But when you look at the left and or the Soviets and how they would take people out of commerce and put them in first ghettos and then gulags. This is a formulae from communist China to Nazi Germany of authoritarians. They took one of our payment processors last week. Now, we had some backups. They've taken our MailChimp, where we send out our mail. They've taken Discuss, our commenting section. They've tried to get our video services we pay for to stream ourselves kicked off. And so when I see an article here, Mastercard forces Patreon to blacklist Jihad Watch Robert Spencer, who's been a guest before, they let terrorist groups have credit cards. They let Hamas and Hezbollah have credit cards. I looked it up, but not a man with no criminal record, who, by the way, is very genteel about their Jihad Watch. It's been around for decades, at least 15 years I've known of. And they're just reporting, okay, another stabbing attack, another bombing, and there's like 2 or 3 today. Attacks in Spain, attacks in France. I can't even keep track of it anymore. And I've had Wahhabist connected groups suing me. I mean, they're just all in my business. And then the media's like, good, take his credit card processing away. You know, don't let him raise money. So, folks, this is true criminal activity, in my view, and it's the height of danger. And so I want to go to him and talk about this because this is incredibly un-American, but beyond saying American, I mean, how would you describe this? This is the blood of tyranny. This is the guts of it. I mean, when they start saying, I'm not just saying this because you're Jewish, it's historical parallel. The first thing they told Jews was you couldn't engage in commerce in what, 34, 35? I mean, this is scary stuff, and it's now happening to me. And I've been told by the left, just stop talking about radical Islam and we'll leave you alone. So what's going on?
It's a concerted effort, obviously, as you know, Alex. It's a concerted effort to shut down all dissenting voices so that the same mistake that the left made in 2016, and that is in allowing too much free discussion on the internet that led to the election of President Trump, they're going to make sure it doesn't happen in 2018. Only their voices will be heard, and only their candidates presumably will be elected.
The historical parallels. I mean, what would you parallel? Tell folks what's happened to you and the specifics. What would you call this? I mean, this is just outrageous.
You're 100% spot on. This is exactly like what the Nazis did to the Jews. People don't know. You know, people think, oh, it was just the Nazis came in gas chambers. No, the gas chambers were not for 7 or 8 years after the Nazis were in power. First, they banned Jews from various professions. You couldn't be a doctor. You couldn't be a lawyer. You couldn't be a university professor. And then banning Jews from various services. And this is exactly what we see happening now. They're deplatforming people so that, well, obviously, I was raising money on Patreon, and Mastercard said, you got to get rid of this guy. They don't even think they have to give a reason, and they let it go. So if you carry this out to its logical conclusion, they ban you, they ban me, they ban Gavin McInnes and other people. Ultimately, we're not going to be able to do any business. We're not going to be able to present our perspectives. And this is exactly what happened. The Jews ultimately, by the time the gas chambers began, they were impoverished. They could not hold any jobs. They were not allowed to hold any jobs. They couldn't even go and buy food if they had money. There was like 1 hour a week open for the stores to allow Jews to come in to buy things. So first they dehumanize you, they silence you. Then once they'd silence the Jews and others, then they demonize. And I'm not trying to compare myself to the Jews, but let me tell you, they lie about me, then they deplatform me. And now that I've been deplatformed, the lies are even worse. They say I'm a Holocaust denier. I hate black people all over the news. And then they don't ever show a clip. And my family's getting scared, man. They're going, whoa, because now that I can't respond, they have just gotten more emboldened. And you're right. It wasn't until 42, 43, Hitler said, I want a final solution. We've been using Jews for slave labor. We've taken all their property. I want them all killed as quickly as possible when he thought he might lose the war. He was going to kill them all later. He wrote, but we got to do it now. And so it's just totally insane that he was so obsessed with killing all the Jews, he might have lost World War II because he spent so much of his energy doing it. So it's a sad sacrifice the Jews had to make, but at least Hitler got beaten. But I'm glad you're a historian on this. But that's what's so crazy about this is they're literally following a Hitlerian program. And I saw articles all this week. We need a solution to the Alex Jones problem. And I'm like thinking, God, I read Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. This don't sound too good. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that they the denial in the first place, the lies that you talk about, that they spread all these lies about you, this is what they've been doing to me also for years. That I come out and I say that there's a threat from jihad terror and documented in books and on the website, and they say, oh, he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's an Islamophobe. And now comes the other foot dropping that racist, bigoted Islamophobes, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center and these other real hate groups, have no right to have a voice. And so well, that was their main reason for banning me, as you know, was Islamophobia, because I literally talked about jihadists running people over with cars every day. Yeah, well, jihadists are running people over with cars. They're screaming Allahu Akbar. ISIS said run over people with cars in Western countries, and they're doing it. But if we talk about it, then it's our fault. And the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which is 57 Muslim governments around the world, they've been pursuing this as an agenda for years. They have what's called an Islamophobia Observatory. And if an imam says, kill the Jews, then that's okay. The OIC doesn't say anything. But if Spencer or Alex Jones says, look, this imam said kill the Jews, then it's Islamophobia, goes in their Islamophobia report. And this is something that's taken seriously.
Well, there's also, because here's the deal. I was never against Israel, whatever. I was never like into them. It was just another country and Israel's our friend, whatever. The obsession of the left calling me all these anti-Semitic names, and I'd be proud if I was Jewish, I'm not. And the way they get away with it on Twitter and Facebook, and then I'm doing nothing and being banned, and they're saying, you know, all these horrible things about my family, and it's like, where did the left become, like they call us Nazis when we're not Nazis, and then they're aligned with people that actually aided the Nazis. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they're the most anti-Israel ones out there. And so if you want to talk about anti-Semitism, it's all on the left. And what's more, you remember the brown shirts in the early days of Nazi Germany, and even before the Nazis came to power. They would go to professors who were anti-Nazi, and they would shout them down. They would circulate articles discrediting them, accusing them of various crimes.
Same thing.
And all physically menacing them. Exactly what's happening to us.
Gosh, wow. Jihadwatch.org. Just good reports, facts on what's happening. We're going to come back and talk about jihadwatch.org. Robert Spencer, who's been banned from raising money by Mastercard. That is just so dangerous, folks. It's happened. They took one of our payment processors. It's but notice no reporting on that little victory they had, because they know that is racketeering. That is trust action. And let me tell you, the president is getting ready to take action after our guest leaves you. I'll tell you what little birds told me. But we're going to talk to Robert Spencer about what do we do? How do we counteract against this? I mean, look, you may hate Israel, okay, whatever. Do you hate people's right to have commerce? And believe me, everybody that's for destroying Israel and, you know, doing this, you're next, okay? I don't understand this obsession with going after Jews, but all you idiots that are into it, you are fools. Robert Spencer is our guest, jihadwatch.org. Very reportedly, very scientific, just reporting on all the different Islamic takeovers that are happening. I don't want to be at war with Islam or these people, but you have this camp, and kids call and say, we're starving, we're dying, there's a dead kid here that was missing from another state. They go, there's a dead kid there. And the lawyers get up and say, if they weren't Muslims, they would be released. If you were Christian or agnostic or an atheist, you got a dead 3-year-old that died in reported ritual, you'd be gone. One reason we got banned off of Vimeo, they said, you lied and said that was a jihad training camp. It wasn't. You are banned. So the coddling of Islam, Robert Spencer's here, jihadwatch.org. Mastercard says it blacklisted Robert Spencer because of illegal content, close quote. And that's the same crap they say about me, that I'm calling for violence, never showing the clip. So the left has gotten crazy, as you said, because Trump won. But this alliance with Islam was there for a while. You're one of the leading experts on this. I used to hear you talk about this 15 years ago, and I didn't think you were a bad guy. I just thought it was exaggerated. I thought you guys were alarmist. It's all true. It's worse than I thought. I was wrong. What is going on? How do we stop this? Where is this going?
Well, where it's going is exactly where it went in Nazi Germany. I don't know if they'll put us all in gas chambers, but certainly they want a complete silencing of any dissenting views from the leftist agenda. They want only the leftist agenda to be heard. And so there's going to be more deplatforming, more people silenced until everybody is in line. And the only thing we can do, of course, we have to try to stop it while we can, start alternative platforms, try to break the power of these monopolies. People say, oh, these are private companies. They can do whatever they want, but they are monopolies. So we need to pursue antitrust legislation against them. I hope the president will do this, because look, these people have more power over the means of social communication today than any totalitarian state ever had.
Yeah, why do you think 26 companies in unison, 6 of them in one day, banned me? I mean, and they admitted that they did it in unison. It's like, whoa.
Well, obviously they had a meeting. Obviously they decided you were a threat, and they figured they could get away with it. and because they had already demonized you with these lies. And so it worked like a charm, really. And what's most appalling is that people don't see the implications. And so many people, it's the same with me. They run from you and they say, well, I don't agree with everything Alex Jones said, so this is okay. And they say this about me as well. Well, Spencer, you know, he's Islamophobic. And they don't realize that they're going to come after everyone. I mean, actually, for years, I've been saying that anybody who speaks honestly about the nature and magnitude of the jihad threat is smeared in his...
Sure, but I can go and move to New York, I can move to D.C., I can move to Austin and be left alone by people. If I try to move to Saudi Arabia or even Jordan, unless I'm in some fancy, you know, apartment or something, got bodyguards, if I try to go anywhere in the Middle East or North Africa, I will be kidnapped and killed or put in jail very, very quickly. That's a fact. So yes, I am Islamophobic. I am Nazi-phobic. I am Chicom-phobic. Moving to China. Apple's moving there. They just deleted a bunch of thousands of apps. They're helping report on political dissidents. Google's helping censor. I'm phobic of Chinese communism. It killed over 100 million people. Damn right I'm scared of it.
Absolutely. This is what we're dealing with, that these people are totalitarians in the same mold. And so they aim to do the same things. And, you know, it's not an accident that Antifa is growing more violent and aggressive on American streets. Just a few years ago, this was unheard of. In 2010, I was in Germany, and Antifa was throwing bottles and sacks of manure and things like that up onto the stage, but nobody had heard of Antifa in the United States. And now it's a presence every time somebody on the right goes out to speak in public. And this is...
And again, the brown shirt parallels or the Mao Brigades is 100% historical.
Absolutely. It's 100% historical. It's following exactly the same pattern. And the social media banning, the demonization, the false charges, and then the social media banning is going along with the violence.
And then the banning of the commerce.
Yes. And
and it's all coming out too. People that visit Infowars.com or like Donald Trump, they're being denied college admission now. I mean, this is it. This.
Yeah, it's not hard to see where it's going, because if Antifa is being violent now, and look, I'll tell you something else. You know that C.J. Werleman, he's an atheist, supposedly. He's an Islamic apologist. He wrote a book about the Quran. He's a leftist. And he actually came out last year, and he said that if he saw me, he would punch me. And he thinks that anybody who sees me should. So he's calling for violence against somebody he hates. And that's pretty much inevitable. Obviously,
why the alliance of atheists and leftists with Islam? Is it because it's another statist, centralized deal and they're allied?
Yeah, they're both totalitarian orders. Sharia Islamic law is the first totalitarian state that establishes an earthly paradise and punishes with draconian punishments those who get out of line. And so that's exactly the same thing as the communist state. It's supposedly an earthly paradise, and it's the gulag if you dissent. And so they also both hate America. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I've just written a book, The History of Jihad, that traces 1,400 years of jihad activity, and it shows that this is something that has always been going on.
Well, sure. And explain that. We're going to come back to one more segment because this is important. You've got the House of Islam, which is always at war with itself, but they claim outside is the House of War. So we're come back and talk about the book on the other side, but specifically, it's all about conquest. I mean, they taught me in college that the West invaded the Middle East. But when I actually read the history book, it said after hundreds of invasions, and we almost lost Europe, and we did lose Constantinople, and we almost lost Rome, we finally did something.
Well, see, that's the point, that they've been set against the West for 1,400 years. So these leftists who hate America, hate Judeo-Christian civilization, hate the West, they see these people as an ally. They see these, oh, here's somebody who's doing the same thing we want to do. We can work with them.
And then at the end, they think the two will then fight over control.
Yeah, sure. And they think because they don't understand the religious impulse and they don't respect it, they think they'll be able to ride the tiger and co-opt the jihadis. But in reality, they should take the lesson of Iran. Remember that Khomeini, when he established the Islamic Republic of Iran, he had communists in his coalition. But within a year or so, all the communists who had helped Khomeini gain power were dead or in prison, and it was solely an Islamic State. And
well, that's another historic thing, going back to Hitler, too, who was a socialist, National Socialist Party, and a National Workers' Socialist Party, Nazi. Ernst Röhm, but also some of the other groups that helped him get in power. The leftists always kill the people that help get them in power.
Yeah, and Hitler killed Rome and did away with the brown shirts, who had done so much to menace his political opponents and get him there. And I think that in this case, it's going to be the other way around, that it's the Islamic jihadis who are going to do away with the brown shirts.
Well, there's no doubt, because the demographics, 1.8 billion Muslims. They say, what, in 10, 15 years, 3 billion? And I mean, you know, they're saying you will submit, you will. And I'm like, no, I will not. I mean, this is a real problem.
Right. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. They're just overwhelming us demographically, but they're also going to overwhelm their leftist allies demographically and easily co-opt them and destroy them.
That's the thing about the left. I've noticed they don't think 2 or 3 places ahead. They always just, the immediacy of their power now, they're not thinking 10 years down the road. They're idiots.
Yes, quite so. Because they're not going to be able to control the forces they've unleashed in the West.
Well, then you get all the Soros documents came out in WikiLeaks where he wants to bring down Israel. Like, I mean, if you brought down Israel, they'd be fighting forever over it. I mean, it would be plus Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel's not going anywhere. We'll be right back. Oh my God. This, as a father of 4 children, and I see Trump trying to just fix the country and they're all attacking him. I'm like, is the country worth it? Yes, it is, because even though half the country's a bunch of idiots, we can't let them run things. So I want to be clear. We know that, if you're a TV viewer, I'll show you some of these articles while our guest is speaking, that Senator Warner has basically said Trump's going to lose. Warner said, I'm going to be president in 2020. It's in his own memos. You better get behind censorship right now. You better let us shut everybody down. And that's when they started with me. After they'd done the demonization campaign, they were planning this the last year and a half. They now admit it. Demonize me, build me up as the boogeyman, use me as the first group they take down, InfoWars. Now, Prager University, Gab McGinnis, everybody. I mean, they're just either shadow banning or deleting everyone right now. Thank God Trump's finally saying something and doing something, and the word is executive orders, particularly because they know the big move is on them going after commerce and us being even able to operate or fund ourselves. So the exact boat that Robert Spencer's in at jihadwatch.org is the boat we're in at Infowars.com. So briefly talk about that, what it was like dealing with that, and then any solution ideas, and also tell us about your new book, The History of Jihad, that everybody should read.
Well, what really was wild about it was how Orwellian it was. Patreon wrote me, and I started a Patreon account. I came into possession of an old TV studio, and I thought I'd fix it up and do videos from it. Just that simple. Started a Patreon to raise money to do that. And not long after it started, just a couple weeks after it started, Patreon wrote me, said, Mastercard doesn't want to give you this platform, so we're disabling your account. I wrote back and asked them why, on what grounds, nothing. And then Mastercard told Breitbart, it's because you have illegal content on your website. Now, there's nothing illegal on Jihad Watch. It's been operating for 15 years. There's 60,000 news and commentary articles on there, and there's nothing, not a shred of illegality. The only way you could conceivably think that there's anything illegal on Jihad Watch is if you are obeying Islamic law. Then there's plenty. Then there's blasphemy against the law, all sorts of things, criticism of Islam, which is what's considered blasphemy, criticism of Muhammad. All those things are illegal according to Islamic law. So is Mastercard now obeying Sharia? It's not just a ridiculous question. They have plenty of holdings in the Middle East, and it may well be that it was because of Sharia that I was banned.
Well, you're absolutely right. And for those that don't know, again, Sharia is the Islamic law. They always make countries they're in go under it by incremental moves. And now you go to Germany, you go whatever, people are basically already obeying Sharia law. So we're being made to adopt whatever they're doing, whatever they're saying. Now we have, the mayor, the Islamic mayor of London, banning women in bathing suits on government property, on billboards, on buses. But then, but burqas are good, and Boris Johnson almost got arrested for saying, look, wear it if you want, but I see it as a symbol of oppression. And it's just wild this is going on.
Yeah, and Boris, they're going to send the Conservative Party, so-called, of Britain, is going to send Boris Johnson to a re-education camp, that is to sensitivity training. And so here again, they're taking a page from the totalitarians. The Chinese communists used to do this kind of thing. And this is the Conservative Party. Well,
look, the left knows that the West has been very liberty-based, but we've also gone through a renaissance, but there's also conservative elements. So they basically adopted the super conservative stance, but projected it through the liberal lens. So it's almost like a new morality of nihilism, where, you can cut your daughter's genitals off or do an honor killing or put a hood over her head, not let her drive a car, and do acid attacks. That's beautiful and wonderful. But if you write about all the Allah Akbar killings, well, you're a criminal. And so that's the death of common sense, the death of logic.
And the imposition of Sharia. Oh, and there's more to this, Alex. It's all actually a deplatforming story, too, in relation to my book. The history of Jihad from Muhammad to ISIS is the first comprehensive narrative treatment of the entire history of Jihad from Muhammad, 14 centuries all around the world, to today. And right before it came out, Congressman Keith Ellison wrote to Jeff Bezos of Amazon demanding that he stop offering for sale every book that was published by a person who's on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hit list. And I am listed as a hate group leader in the Southern Poverty Law Center's anti-Muslim extremists list. This is the same kind of defamation.
So this is the book burning list.
Yeah, exactly. And Amazon's one of the only places you can get it to start with, because brick and mortar bookstores don't want to carry it. They're afraid they're going to get blown up.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, I think with Charlie Hebdo and all this, there's an intimidation factor here.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
And historically, what percentage usually of a country becomes Islamic before they go from, we're peaceful, we love you, to we're taking over?
Not much. 10%, 5 to 10%. We're seeing it now in France and Sweden. And they still have very low percentages of Muslim population, but they're increasingly aggressive and violent. Sure. They're growing Sharia enclaves. Well,
Soros can claim that, he helped round up people for with the Nazis, but he didn't mean to because he was ordered to. If I was ordered to do that, I wouldn't do it. But his action since wanting to overthrow Israel, wanting to overthrow the West, why would he, who's supposedly Jewish and then claims he wasn't a Nazi collaborator, why do you think from your research he's funding all this jihad stuff and anti-Israel? Is he just super cold-blooded and wants raw power?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a socialist internationalist par excellence. And so he wants to erase borders, erase the concept of the nation state, erase the very concept of ethnicity itself. So he's sponsoring the mass Muslim migration, underwriting it, financing it, approving of it. He even bought favorable coverage of it in the establishment media. And he is trying to inundate Europe and North America with the Muslim migrants who have a radically different idea of how a culture and a society should be ordered.
I know for a fact he's put big money down for these. This whole thing against me is Soros financed. I mean, this guy's crazy.
And all these organizations that smear me as a bigot and a hate monger are all Soros financed. It's all the same initiative. And what he's trying to do is ultimately pave the way for societal collapse in the West so that a totalitarian order can take its place that is internationalist. And I guess maybe he will profit from that financially or some other way.
I just think he's completely insane.
Evil.
He's just.
I don't know. Insane. If he were insane, he couldn't do this. He's evil, like Hitler.
I agree. He's all over my butt. I tell you, I'm not backing down. I'm not backing down. You're not backing down. Robert Spencer, God bless you. We appreciate you. You know what? I want to put an order in. If you give us your folks, I want to buy 500 of the book. I want to sell it at InfoWarsStore.com because they're trying to tell me I can't do this. They're trying to destroy my life because I'm exposing this. I want the Muslims to reform themselves, like Christianity and other groups have done. I want them to, there were prophets in Israel. When Israel was out of control, they'd have to have a reform. I don't want to say Israel, Christianity was ever like this. We just absolutely, I'm not their enemy, but I will not roll over and die. I will not roll over and present my belly. And we appreciate you, Robert Spencer. And so I'm going to get your contact info so I can buy 500 books today for InfoWarsStore.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated.
Appreciate you.
And I stand for freedom and your courage.
Well, we're all in this together. God bless you. Okay, folks, I'm going to come back and get into Trump and his move against Facebook and others, which has to happen. But the left are a bunch of appeasers. And they see Christians and conservatives and conservative Jews and libertarians as weak. They see us as not being aggressive. And so they're running over us. And we're going to have to get politically involved. And we're going to have to get politically aggressive to change all this. But this is just an insane asylum. One of the videos they first took down on YouTube before they banned me 2 weeks ago was the Barbie Jihad, where we did the Barbie doll in the burqa, driving the car and pointed out she'd be arrested. They said that we couldn't do that. I mean, this is insane, folks. This is insane. And they're all over videos on YouTube, jihadis saying they're going to take over America and our women belong to them and all this insane crap. Okay, I'm going to come back into the big news, Trump responding to the persecution of conservatives online, the next big move. And then I intend to have a special guest for like 2 segments come on. I didn't even know they had that in the control room. They're showing the bannable offense. It's the burqa Barbie. I mean, women can't drive in, Saudi Arabia, but if you get caught kissing your husband, you go to jail. If you do it in public. But the feminists just like, ooh, we like it. Ooh, it's fun. Whatever, you people are crazy. That is the feminist. We'll be right. They just see leftist Western men as weak. So they get politically together and henpeck us. But then somebody who's going to like put them in a slave factory, they're like, oh, we love you. Oh. We'll be right back. Please, however you're watching or listening on local radio, TV, or Infowars.com, spread those links. That bypasses the censors. You've been doing a great job, but we got to go to the next level in the face of this. This is a fight for our lives. Stay with us.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
You're a white man! You're a white man!
If you are receiving this